Okay, we'll start. It looks like I'm recording now. Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. So welcome. Again, as I mentioned several times now, on these Tuesday night lectures I got for the next few weeks, you have the option to either watch the video from when I did it last year, or join tonight, which a lot of you have, or watch the recording of what we're doing right now. I hope people don't rely on that last option, simply because if something went wrong on the recording, then we don't have it. Okay. But then like I said, we got them from last year. If any of you, and by the way, I hope a lot of you are watching both of them anyway. I think it's worthwhile, because I don't, even though I repeat most of it, I do add some things. And especially after I watched the one from last year, I might realize, I got to say that a little bit different, this time, so it's actually polishing it a little bit now that we're doing it again this semester. And again, this is only going to go on for a little while anyway, before you'll watch the pre-recorded sessions, which are a lot easier to handle, because I was able to take my time and do it in quiet and really focus on some pretty tough topics, that take a little while to teach. So that will help them. But I don't intend to just disappear on you. I may tell you that right now. Okay. We'll have, even if it's a brief once in a while, get online. There might be something I want to add, or something, an introduction I want to make, or, even field, if there's some interesting questions, I may do it that way. So, and again, I don't mean to repeat myself. I know I've said a lot of this before, but again, I was just saying, Aziz, we be getting questions from, and some of the questions tell me that not everybody's absorbing the instructions I'm giving them. All right. Truthfully, I don't think they're even trying to absorb them. Okay. They're too, that concerns me. Okay. If you can't read an email that I write and understand what I'm saying, then we got a problem. All right. If you can't get on a video that I've done and understand the instruction, you've got a problem. All right. That's how it's going to be all semester. I'm not changing. So, and the good news is, like I said, the lion's share of you are not having any problems, I think. So, and by the way, those of you who have sent me emails saying how much you like how this is structured, I appreciate that. I hope you'll continue to like it as we go through the semester. I think it's a pretty straightforward way of learning this class. It's definitely more experiential than I know people are used to. You're probably used to professors just regurgitating what comes out of a book. Okay. I'm not that kind of a guy. All right. I'm a guy who knows what you need to do, what I need to do to help you develop a talent here. Okay. And that's what this is about. And again, I won't reiterate too much, but you've heard me say it before. Data is everything right now. The reason I'm bringing this up, I just got off a thing with a couple vice presidents at Spirit, and they were going on and on about how we need better data people, basically. All right. When they say that, they mean people who do not only the data management, but the analytics that go along with it. And of course, making data actionable, turning it into real information that we could encode in systems and use to drive automation. So, I've said that. I know I've said that before to you guys. That's my impetus for doing this class. I hope that's what you'll get out of it at the end. Okay. But we got to start somewhere. And where we started is on tables. All right. Particularly the subject table. As I said in session 3, it is the table in our database, and you'll have more than one of them usually. Okay. For this first part of the semester, we're going to deal with just one subject table and learn all the different objects that there are in Access utilizing one subject table. Okay. And then we're going to expand it to multi-subject tables in the second half, where we really get into all the different relationships that can exist between data. Next week, when we get together, we're going to explore the first relationship called the category relationship. It's different than the other ones, and you'll understand that better as we go through the class. But it's also the one we use most as industrial engineers. So it's one that I've put a lot of time and energy in coming up with a nice repeatable practice for doing it. And I think you'll like doing it. I think you'll really love how it simplifies the entry of data when data is constrained. Tonight, we're going to actually talk about some things like that. We're going to talk about how to build a subject table. How do we actually build the fields in the table? And how can we make those fields a little bit smarter by doing things like constraining the ranges that a date or a number can have, or by building a template that will allow you that if it's an 8-digit thing, it goes in as eight I should say 8 characters. It goes in as 8 characters, and those characters could be all uppercase. We're going to do that right away, in fact, in one of our examples. Now, I did mention, okay, by the way, you should have in the last lab already looked at the tutorial that we're going to do tonight, T01-02. And you could probably tell it didn't really take me a long time to do it, you know. It's a pretty lengthy table, but I knocked it out pretty quick. Of course, I know what I'm doing, all right? It's going to take you longer. All right. Don't ever watch those tutorials and think, oh, it only took him 15 minutes. It's only going to take me that long. Okay. What took me 15 minutes might end up taking you 4 hours to really get it right. You know, you may have some false starts. You might have to do it over. You may just want to do it several times just to make sure you really know how to do it. And that's really good practice. Don't wait till 15 minutes before your assignment's due thinking you're going to get it done though. Okay. I guarantee it, you won't do well. All right. So I am going to share my screen, and we will get into this fun stuff that we're talking about. All right. Didn't mean to bring up Yahoo. Let's see. Okay, that's where I want to be. Actually, let me bring up my Edge Explorer. Okay, so where we're at right now is we are doing tutorial T01-02, and that starts on page 25 of the first lesson, L01, okay? This one's a little bit different than the others, where the other ones are step-by-step. Here, I just have a step that refers to a table that we're going to use to actually build the fields. So there's this table here that actually lists all the fields that are going to be in this subject table that we're going to build called dblStudents. Okay, it actually shows you what those fields should be called using the notation. And then it's got the properties and how we're going to set those properties, what those are equal to. Okay, it also has a little section that talks about the validation rules that some of those fields have. So what I would set on those validation rules for both the rule and the text. And then we're even going to have a validation rule for the table itself. Okay, and I'll get to that toward the end. So most of this, I'm sure a lot of you have already tried this and you got it down pat. So I am not going to do every single little thing in this tutorial. All right. Most of them I will, but not this one. All right. A lot of them, I'm just going to show you the highlights and point out the things that you really want to watch for when you build a subject table. But for the most part, I think most of you will get exactly what I want you to do here just from looking at that. So that is in the L01, that matrix. I also split it out for you because I know some in the old, especially when I do this thing live in class, some people like to do this along with me, and it's hard to flip back and forth between the table and access, you know. So I gave you just the table isolated by itself that you could print out, and that's what I did. I've got that right now. I know you're not seeing me very well, but if you are seeing me, you're seeing that I printed it out. So that's what I'm going to follow here. All right. And so let's go over there and start doing it. So before I get going on it, I sent you an email this weekend. I hope you understood where I was going with this. All right. We will learn way at the end of the semester how to compile our application so you don't really even need access to run it. Okay. Now you will need a thing that's called the Access Runtime module, but Microsoft gives that out for free, and you can run an Access database if you have that on your PC. If you got Access already, you don't need it because it'll just open up an Access straight. Okay. All the tutorials that I give you, except for those first 2 that we did the other night, all the tutorials and all that I give you will have a compiled version of that. All the assignments I give you will have a compiled version. The compiled version will not give you the answer to the assignments. It just shows you what yours should look like once you get done with it, okay, from what they call an operational perspective. So if I go in here now, I have a 32-bit machine, so I'm going to click on compiled 32. Okay, I'm looking at the solution right now. I've got the solution for this tutorial and I've compiled it. I've also compiled the 64-bit version of it. I'm on a 32-bit machine, so I'm going to open up the 32-bit version. And when I do that, and sometimes it takes a second for it to fire up, especially when I've got Zoom running. But here you go. Here you go. It just opened up. And what it's doing here is it's open in datasheet view. Okay, you can see I don't have a navigation pane or anything like that. I don't have a way to switch the view to design view. It's compiled so that you cannot get to the design of it. All right, but you can enter data. All right, I could go in here and I could put a new record to put data in, and it's got all, and this has got, you can see that Kansas came up for the home region because there's a default value that it automatically populates in there for Kansas. Same thing for the home country. We'll learn this in a minute, okay? But I think you're getting the idea. On some of these, like the Shocker ID, that's my alternate key field, my single field alternate key. It has to be there or else it won't let me save the record. In fact, if I went like this and I did, and I tried to move off of that, I'm going to get, you must enter a student name. Whoa. I just did enter a student name. What's that all about? Didn't go past, I didn't go past it. That's why. Now if I move off, well, it's still doing that. Isn't that weird? I have to check that out, why that's happening. Boy, that's a required field. And it's, just because I didn't do this, why did it give me that error message? I have to check that out. I never noticed that before. See, boy, that's weird. Oh, you know what? I'll bet you this has the wrong message on it. That's why. It's this said you must enter student name. It should say it must enter Shocker ID. That's what it should have said, because it is a required field, because it's an alternate key field. But also if I had violated the alternate key, I'll have to check that on my solution. I probably got that wrong. Yeah, see, now I got duplicate value and it won't let me do it. So anyway, let's get out of that. You get the idea. Again, you get done, you could, you don't ever compile your stuff until, again, we get to the end of the semester. Okay, if you do, you could really mess things up. If you want to see what your data sheets ought to look like, you could go here and give you a good example of that. So let's get past here. All right, I'm going to close that down now. I'm going to take that T01-02, your name, and I'm going, as I always do, I copy it and I paste it. And I put my name in it. And Aziz, please monitor the comments in case somebody has something to ask. Okay. All right. So now I'm opening that up. And again, it's always, if the first time if you rename a file, or it's the first time you ever open a file, or it's the first time you move a file to another directory, Access wants to know that the file is trusted. So you need to enable the content. Always do this. All right. Be careful. It's weird. Access will let you do some things without it being enabled, but not everything. And so you could get going and suddenly things don't work. And that's probably the reason why. So I'm going to open up. I've got a table in here. I named this for you. Okay. Again, if you brought this over in a lot of the homework assignments, or if you brought this over from the BAL, if I had given you that, it would say TBL and then in curly brackets, SUBJECT, subject, okay, in capital letters. And I sent you a thing this weekend. In my notation, curly brackets means you need to substitute something and get rid of the curly brackets. You don't need them, all right? So my subject here is student. Each record represents a student. So the subject of each record is student. Not students, not plural, student, all right? I'm just going to ask you to trust me on that. Later in the semester, I'll tell you why you don't want to have that plural, all right? But table student. Okay, so here's my table. Now let's open it up in design view. And all those fields that you see in that table that you would normally build, I have built for you. At least I put the field in there and I've named it, okay? I haven't assigned it a data type though. I haven't assigned its properties. I just gave you the field and I put the prefix on it, the name of the table, and then the actual dash name of the field. All right. So for the field, that's the student's name. TXT means a short text field. Student is the name of the table, right? TBL student. Student is the subject. Dash name. Okay, name is the name, what the field is basically. And again, we do that because if I had just used name there, name's a reserved word and wouldn't allow you to do it. Guys, please mute your.
Are you going for the Telux apartment? Are you going to the apartment?
I think I got him. Okay. Guys, please keep yourself muted unless you absolutely need to talk. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get going here. The very first thing I will always want to do is make sure I've got my alternate key set. Now you'll see up here right at the top, I've got my primary key already. It will always be there. I've said this over and over. Never have to do anything to the primary key. You never have to touch it. When you copy that, when you get that bol object, that will be there. It'll already have a caption on it, a record identifier. It will already have a description on it, record identifier. It'll already be an auto number. If I go up to indexes, you'll see it's there, the primary key. Okay. Now, but I do need I need an alternate key. So I'm going to have a single field alternate key, and it's going to be the Shocker ID, right? Because everybody has a unique Shocker ID, and everybody has a Shocker ID. So all the students are going to have Shocker IDs, and they're going to be unique. So that qualifies it to be a good alternate key field. All right. So again, and I'll show you this. In fact, I'm going to show you it right now. I'm going to go back out here, and I'm going to open up the file for the assignment. Okay. Now I'm not going to go over this. Okay. I just want to show you what a typical bol object looks like raw. How come that didn't open? Oh, here it goes. Okay. See how it looks, TBL subject? If I open up this in design view now, you'll have the record identifier out there. You'll also have this. I built in a single field alternate key. Now I know we can have a multiple field alternate key, and later in the semester I'll show you how you do this for a multiple field. But right now we're mainly going to be dealing with single field alternate keys. I have already built a template for you. So you see this template. All you have to do is substitute the name of the subject. So we would put student in here. And then for alternate key field, Shocker ID. And then over here, I would say Shocker ID. And then down here, let me go on the right field here first off, Shocker ID for the description. And then when I come down here on the caption, I would say Shocker ID too. All right. And then even here, there's a is not null, right? Because it's a required field. You must enter put Shocker ID in there. So you have several places where you want to put Shocker ID. But when that's done, then your alternate key is built for you automatically, because you know what? I've already put it up here and it'll show up here. Okay. Now, in the one we're building right now, I don't have it up there because I wanted to show you in case you have a problem, in case you actually accidentally delete that field and you have to build the key by yourself, how to do that. Okay. So let's go back really quick. And I'll come back to this later on. So I'm on my Shocker ID. I'm going to open up the indexes, and you see I don't have the alternate key in here now. So I want that Shocker ID to be the alternate key. I've got two ways to do that. One is I could do it right here, and I'm going to suggest that you do it that way. But the quick way would be just to go down here and just say it's indexes, yes, no duplicates. I'm going to go up here and do it instead though. I'm going to make an alternate key, and you could just say alternate key like this if you want, or you could have done KAI student. Either way it would work. KAI is the prefix for an alternate key, a single field alternate key, and then student is the name of our subject. And then I would go in here and find that field, Shocker ID, and having an ascending is good. It's not the primary key, but it is unique. So when I make that change and I close this down, you see down here, it made the index, yes, no duplicates. So now that is an alternate key field. That's cool. Ready to go, right? Well, remember, one of my conditions of an alternate key is it's not null, right? It's required. So I don't have a validation rule right now here to make that a required field. So I got to put that in at the very least. Is not null. And you must enter a shocker ID. That's what the message should have been when I made the thing in the compiled version. I obviously had the wrong message in the text here. Okay, so anyway, there's my required field. It's pretty much done. I could go on if I want to, but I want to make this even smarter. All right, what about our shocker IDs? They're always 8 characters, aren't they? Okay, they're alphanumeric. Yeah, now I know I could even go further. I could say, you know, the first character has to be a letter, and the 5th character has to be a letter, and the other characters are numbers. I can actually I can build a template that does that. That's that smart. But I'm going to make this a little bit easier on us. Okay, since it's our first time doing one of these. Okay, I'm just going to say I want 8 characters. That's it. No more, no less. In other words, if they start typing, they're going to have to type 8 characters. And not only that, but I want to store uppercase. Now, numbers, it doesn't matter, right? But on the alphabetical characters, I want them to be stored in my database in uppercase so that even if they enter it lowercase, it'll look like it's uppercase and it'll be stored as uppercase. To do that, I go over on the input mask. Now, first off, one of the things I always point out, field size. By default, any TXT field is going to get 255 characters, but that's the most they could have, all right? We don't always need that many. And if he gave you that and you left it that, would that be okay? Yeah, it really wouldn't kill anything. But in a case where I really know what the biggest size of that field is going to be, I usually will fix it. So I'll put 8 in here. All right. So I know I'm going to have 8 characters in here. And now I'm going to specify what those 8 are. All right. Those 8 characters, how do I do that? How do I make that template? Well, first off, I'm going to put a greater than sign. The greater than sign means whatever follows converted to uppercase. Make it be uppercase. Okay. So this is, oh, I put it in format. That's a mistake I do a lot. Watch that. Okay. We want to do it on input mask. In fact, I made that mistake on the other video. So be careful of that. Okay. Input. So uppercase. Now I've indicated that this template is only going to take uppercase characters and numbers. Okay. All right. A, capital 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 A. 8 A's, 8 capital A's is what I just put there, I think. Yeah, it looks like it. All right. Capital A means it's a required alphanumeric character. In other words, they have to put in 8 characters right now. Okay, they don't have any optional characters that they could put in. All right, and I'll explain that in a second. I'll show you when we have optional. And then I put a comma or a semicolon in, and then another semicolon. And after that other semicolon, I'm going to put an underscore. Now there are 3, the semicolons break up this template in 3 parts. The first part is the true template. The last part is the character that's going to appear in the field when I cursor into it. In other words, it's going to be my prompt to put a character in. All right, you'll see that. I'll go back to the data sheet in a second. You'll see that. And the one in the middle, I can't remember what that means. I think it means take it literally or something like that. You know, I never use it, so that's why I don't remember what it is. So just know it's usually the pattern for the template, and then 2 semicolons, and then whatever you want to use to be the thing that prompt people that they have to put something into that field. Okay, I could use the pound sign. Sometimes you'll see that, you know, for the prompt. I could use an @ sign. I really recommend you use an underscore. Use an underscore. And in fact, I think if you don't put anything in there, it's underscore by default. I'm not sure, but I just always put the underscore in there. All right. Now, this is, believe it or not, one of the harder things you're going to do all semester is remember how to build an input mask. And the good thing is we're not going to have to do it very often. All right. So this is my input mask for this field now. I'm going to save this. Okay. I'm going to save this table as it is right now. All right. Now, keep in mind, look again. Okay. 2 things I wanted to point out. Shocker ID, I put that in there. You want a description on this field. You also want a caption. It could be the same thing as the description, or it could be something, they could be something different. It's up to you. All right. The caption will be what appears at the top of the data sheet. Later on when we do forms, it'll be the label that's on the control that allows us to put information into our database. Okay, but just know you have to have a caption in every field. You have to have a description. What's the description? Later on, when we get into forums, we're going to have controls that will be that will be linked to these fields. And as you move into control, you'll get that description will appear at the bottom of the screen. It's kind of a little help for the person. Let them know what that field is about or what that caption does. All right. So they would move into that and they would see a little thing at the bottom that says Shocker ID. Then you'll see this when I do form for you guys later on. All right. So let's go right now to the data sheet. And you can see it's a brand new thing. So I'm going to go in here and look what happened when I clicked in Shocker ID. It's got a bunch of underscores. That's what this is. That's an 8-place underscore. It's waiting for me to put in 8 digits. I'm going to type lowercase here. Watch what happens. Capital P, huh? Capital T. Yeah, I know it's supposed to be a number. It's a Shocker ID. All right. But I'm typing lowercase and it's putting it in there as uppercase. So when I finally commit this record and it saves that value to the database, it's going to be saved as capital, not lowercase. And that's cool. All right. Because we want consistency in our data. If I had some data where the first letter was capitalized and the other one wasn't, and the next one, the first one wasn't, and the second one was, and they're both, and then they're not, it could get to be a real mess. Okay. Okay. So one of the questions I'll usually get from a student at this point, I'm going to get out of this and go back. I'll get from now you made that 8 characters. What if in the future, Wichita State decides to make it 10? Well, then I got to come in here and I got to add a couple A's to this and increase the field size to 10. All those things that were 8 before, they'll still be 8 in there. No problem. All right. The new ones, though, from that point on, will need 10. All right. What if WSU decided to go to 6, get rid of 2? Those other ones would be there, but it would lop off the last 2 digits. It truncates them. Okay, so you have to be incredibly careful on your field size. Okay, on something like the Shocker ID, where I guarantee you they're not going to change it from 8. That's good for 100 years. We're probably okay keeping it at 8. But anything like, say, an address or a name, if you didn't put enough things in there and suddenly somebody came in with a bigger name, either you're going to truncate their name or you're going to have to come back in here and change the design of your table. It's not a big deal, okay? But I've seen databases that were out there for 20 years and suddenly they had changed the design of the table. And people were really scared, about what that would do, so try to foresee ahead of time how big things ought to be, how the size of things. I'm going to go to student name now. Okay, so I built this student name field. It did not come from a template like this one did. This was the alternate key template. All right, this one is just a field I added to this. I went down here, put it in, picked the type, short text. Okay, and I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Put a name for description, name for the caption, and it's got 255. Yeah, that's a little big. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? I said make it 100. Yeah, do you know anybody who's got 255 characters in their name? I don't. That's pretty big. I'll make it 100. I actually had a student once that had 45 characters in his last name. So 100, might happen once in a while. So I'm going to do 100. All right. I'm not going to set an input mask on that because names. Think of the different variety of names that are out there. People who have 3 middle names, or they only use an initial for their first name, or they have hyphens in their last name, or hyphens in their first name, or they're junior or senior or whatever. Now I will do a whole thing about names at sometimes, because it turns out names are one of the harder things we have to deal with in databases. But for now, let's just say that we're going to have a field of 100 characters and I can put the name in there whatever way I want to. Okay. Maybe I have a desire that they have last name, comma, first name, and then something else. And in that case, I could really split it up into a field that's called last name, a field that's called first name, and all that. I see that a lot when I do things online. I think it's overkill. if I wanted to group people, maybe it's a family database and I wanted to group people by the last name, then I probably want a field that's just last name. Okay. But in students, you know, I just, as long as, and I'm putting their names in, I know though how I want them to go in. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself and say, I'm going to give 100 there. I'm not going to put an input mask on it, but I do require this field, even though it's not a key field, I require it. So is not null. Yeah, sorry, spelled not wrong. Smarter than I am. Not null. You must enter a name. Okay. And again, always check to make sure that your required is no and your allow zero length is no. And since this is not a key field, I should say it's not a primary key field and it's not a single alternate key field. We don't index it. So there's no index on that field. All right. And we are ready to go on. I'm not even going to go, I'll go back there later on and I'll test that field out just to make sure. You can test as you go. That's another thing that's cool about Axis. I could go over to right now and I did it real. Is that not null working? You know, I could do that now if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep going on. Okay. Home address, short text. Oh boy, I didn't give you a size on that. I should get, oh, I know. If I don't give you a size, make it 255. Addresses could get really huge. Okay, so we're just going to let that be 255. And in fact, when I do databases, most of the time I make addresses what we call long text fields, memo fields. But in this case, we'll just say 255 will be enough characters for me to get their home address in. The city, I want to make it 50 characters. And again, these are all text fields, short text fields that I'm entering right now. And then the region. Okay, so now here we got something fun. Home region, that would be like the state. Okay, now not all my students are from the United States of America, but it turns out it is almost universal that there are what's called postal codes. They're like zip codes. I just call them region. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong thing here. This is states. Okay, this would be states in the United States. All right. You know, Canada's got dominions. Okay, the UK has districts. Okay, and it turns out almost universally it's 2 digits. Okay, it's 2 letters really. Okay, and I can actually force that to be 2 letters, but I actually know that in the UK you have districts that are like P8. All right, so I can't just make it letters. If it was letters, I can make it a capital L for the input mask and would force it to be an upper, I would force it to be uppercase, and then I use capital L and then would force that I have to have a letter. All right. So if it's states in the United, if this is for the United States, I probably do LL. Okay. But because it's anywhere in the world, and I could have places where postal, I'm sorry, the district is like P8 or S9, I'm going to make it just 2 alphanumeric characters in uppercase. So field size is 2. Input mask is greater than AA. And again, semicolon, semicolon, underscore. And now that just defaulted that to be that I have to put 2 characters in there. All right. And they'll be converted uppercase if they're alpha. All right. But I can make it even smarter. Most of my students are from Kansas. So I could spend all day just typing KS over and over and over and over and over. Or I could actually force this to be Kansas by default. Now that doesn't mean because it's Kansas, I can't override it. I can't go and change it. I can do that. But I'm just going to say, let's just have it come up as Kansas automatically. So then I go into default and I just put KS in it. Now you'll see it's double quoted on my thing. It should do that for you automatically. See, I moved off of it and it put the double quotes on it. So now it's Kansas. I'm going to save this, go over there just so you could see it. Okay, and it always does that. When you add integrity rules and all that, it's just telling you that if there's data there already, it may not conform to those integrity rules. All right, because I had this record that I basically entered there before. But you can see now on a new record, it's coming up Kansas. Okay, records that were in there before that default value was put on there as a condition, don't have to have it. Okay. If I go up here and try to edit this now, it still won't be there. I have to actually type it in. Okay. But again, let's double check some things here. We know that the Shocker ID is there already. I already tested that one, so I won't do that again. Whoops. But I will test name, and I'll come down here and I'll go down. Yeah, you must enter a name. So I know I need to do that too. Okay, I come down now. Yeah, it's working. So we're good. All right, let's go back now. And we're going to do the next one, which is country. Okay. The country. Every country on the planet, I found out, has at least in their acronym has 2 letters. They could have up to 5 in their acronym. All right. So I've got a situation where I want to have, if they start typing, I want them to put 2 letters in for sure, but they could optionally go up to 5 letters. All right. So let's make this 5. The country field size is 5. Whoops, 5. And my input mask now is going to be, again, I want to force it to be uppercase. If you don't want to force it to be uppercase, don't put the greater than sign. In fact, if you want to force it to be lowercase, put a less than sign. And you're probably thinking, where do these come from? I'm going to show you in a second. Okay. I just want to get through this of doing a few of them. And now I'm going to show you how I know this. Okay. Greater than sign, AA, capital A means it's required. So I'm requiring 2, but then optionally you can put 3 others. Little a, little a, little a. Little a means optionally you could do that. All right. Semicolon, semicolon, underscore. Home country. And I, on this one, want to put a default value of USA because most of my students are from the USA. There you go. Let's save it. I know it's always going to do that, by the way, because you just change the integrity rules a little bit. Okay, here we go. So here's a new one. You see now it's got USA in there. All right. Let's put some stuff in here. I'm just putting junk in here. Don't worry about it. Okay. So it comes down here and says USA. All right. I'm going to wipe that out. See what happened? Put underscores there. I'm going to start typing. I'm going to say FR and optionally N. All right. I don't have to do the rest of it. I could go on. It'll let me do just 3. All right. USA had 3, right? But I said you only required 2. If I try to just do 1 and go on, it won't let me do it. It says you're violating the input mask, basically. I wish we were able to make a better error message than that, but we can't. But we could go all the way up here and we could even put numbers in there if we wanted to. So good enough. But again, these are kind of things that help the person who's actually adding data, because I'll tell you, you may have thousands of records that you have to input by hand, and little things like that could save them hours of aggravation, if you do it right for them, if you foresee all the things that they could need help with. All right. So again, how did I know this code, AA, little AAA? Where did I find it out? On all these properties. In fact, everything you see on the screen, if you could click in it, and then right click on it. Oh, I'm sorry, that won't work. They took that out. Click in it, and then hit your F1 key. Is this going to work on this? Let's see. Click on it and hit F1. Yeah. And what that will do is, you got to be on the internet, unfortunately. It'll take you out to Microsoft's site, and it will tell you how to build them input mask property. Now, you got to be careful on this. It's different for different types of fields. Okay. We want to know where it's for the text box. So right here, it says text box input max property. There's also one for combo boxes. You know what? Doesn't work. Okay. So this input mask, 99.99% of the time you'll use them on text fields. I'll tell you that much right now. In fact, I can't remember the last time I used one on anything other than a text field. But you go on a text field, a short text field, that is, you put it in input box. go to that. And then when you go down here, you'll see the sections that I told you about. So the first section is the input mask. What did it do? It took me back. That's weird. Okay. You know what? I may have clicked it twice. That's why. All right. So here it's giving the example. I wanted to put a phone number in there. This is how that would look, the input mask for it. And these 9s mean a character is number is required there. Okay, that's what 9 does. Okay, second, yeah, whether little characters are stored there. I'll tell you about that when we do it. We're going to do an input mask for phones in a minute. I'll point that out for you. Okay, and then the third one again is that underscore. Okay, what are the codes? What do they mean? Here they all are. So just if you put a 0 in there, that means you could put any digit between 0 and 9, and the entry is required. Oh, I guess 9 meant optional. Why would you have optional in the phone number? I would have had those all zeros. Maybe the area code could be 9s, right? Yeah, area code's 9 and then zeros for the rest of it. If they're going to put a phone number in, it's going to be digits, right? So there you go. If I wanted digits, but I want to make them, but they're not required. In other words, they're optional. I'd use a 9. Pound is a digit or a space. Okay, so if you're okay with them putting spaces in their strings, you could use that. Okay, you got them all here. Okay, you can see all the different possibilities that you have here. And there's even a way for you to put literal characters. In other words, say I wanted all the shocker IDs to start with the letter A. I could have it come up so it has A in there by putting a backslash and A. All right, that's not the same as the A that's up here that is used as a substitute for the template. It's when you put backslash A, it means take the next character literally, and it actually puts an A on there. So if I put D, it would have put a D in there. All right, and it's kind of nice because I get a lot of things like at Spirit, our IDs all start with the letter S. Okay, I don't have to have them type it. I could have it with an S ready to go. So anyway, that's where I learned all those things from. And I highly suggest anytime you get into something and you don't know exactly how it works, go out and hit the F1 key and bring up the help for it. Now, Microsoft help isn't always the greatest. I would also recommend that if you have trouble, just go out there and Google input mask access. And you would find other people who have the same documentation and sometimes more readable. And they sometimes give you really good examples too. Truthfully, that's how I've learned most of what I know about the details of access is by doing those kind of things. All right, let's go back. All right, because I've got a postal code. And you know what? Postal codes, again, are different country to country. So on this one, I opted not to put an input mask at all, but I am going to limit the number of characters in it to 25. And I'm going to go on. Again, these things like the caption that are there, I set that for you. You will have to do that yourself, okay? Always put a caption, always put a description in. No matter how many times I do say that, it's unbelievable how many people will do this and refuse to do a caption and description, and then they got cryptic crap all over the place. It doesn't make sense. It's a quick thing. It's a little bit of typing, but it's quick, and it saves you so much aggravation. It makes things look a lot better for the end user. All right, the campus address, I'm going to leave that as short text. And again, I'm making it 255. On these where I don't hit, where it says short text and I didn't give you a number, it means just use the default. Okay, I should have put 255 in there. I'll have to fix that later on. Okay, let's go to phone now. Okay, now phones are digits, but it's not a number. Okay, it's still characters. What's the rule of thumb of when I would use a number field versus a text field? If I ever thought I needed to, there's a possibility I could do math on the field, on what's in that field, then I want it to be a number. If it's always just going to stand for something, then it's character, okay? Now, there are ways to convert on the fly, all right? But something like a phone number, especially if you want to include the parentheses and the dash, you want it to be character, okay? You want it to be text. So I'm going to make it a text field, and I'm going to make it a 10-digit field. Because how many digits are in a phone number? Well, there's 3 in the area code, 3 in the prefix, and 4 in the latter. Okay. Yeah, but Dr. Huffman, what if I want the parentheses and the dash? Well, then I'd have to add 3 more, right? Turns out Access is smart enough to help us with that. Okay, I just want to keep the numbers. Now, even though 3 more characters isn't a lot of memory, okay, it is less efficient to have those repeat over and over and over. So I'm not going to worry about the parentheses and the dash. I just want to store the the phone number itself. Okay. All right. Now the input mask on this, we saw it just a second ago, and I could build it myself. But another way to do it, there are some built-in ones, and one of the great ones in here, the one I probably use the most, is the one for the phone number. So I just hit this ... here. That's called the ellipse. When I did that, it's first going to say you got to save the table. Okay, I'll save the table. All right. Yeah, it's going to do that again. Okay. Now it's going to come up with this little wizard. On that wizard, the first one that's highlighted is phone number. You can see it's got social security number, zip code, extension, password, long time, short time. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Okay. The only one I ever use is phone number. All right. And if you click here and you come down here and click on try it, it'll show you what it's going to actually do for you. And you can actually try it the way it is right now. I'm going to go on. And now it's going to show me what the code is for the input next. It's showing me that the area code is optional. 999 is optional digits. I don't have to enter that, but I do have to enter the phone number. The other thing that's kind of interesting here is it's got an exclamation point, which I thought meant it enters from this direction. Okay, I think it does. I think if you enter 1, it'll put it there, and then you enter 2, and okay, you still type it out as if it is area code blah, 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 blah. But it populates over from this side. Just in case you decide you don't want the area code, it stops typing. All right. So it's a little funny. That's what the exclamation point does for you. But it makes sense. You know, I don't want to go this way because if I started here, I might have an area code. Then I may not have wanted the area code. You can click anywhere in that template and start wherever you want. And that's usually how I end up doing it if I don't have an area code. But you know what? I want to force the area code. 90% of the time I do that anyway. All right. So I'm going to back this up right now. I could either do it after it's generated or I could do it right now. I could back this up. Oops, shoot, I didn't mean to erase them. Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean to erase them. Sorry about that. Okay, now it's 0000000, and I'm going to use underscore as the placeholder. Go and try it now. So it looks the same thing. Go on. And now is where I get to say, do I want to save those parentheses or not? Okay, it's going to look like this when I see it in the data sheet, but it doesn't have to be saved to the database that way. It can be saved like this. I want to save it like this. All right. In fact, I can't save it like this because I didn't make the field large enough. I'd have to make it 13 to actually save the parentheses in that dash. Oh, actually, I have to make it 14 because there's a space here too, and that counts. All right. So I just want to save these 10 digits. I'm basically making it more efficient by 4 digits, but I'm doing that on every single record, right? So without the symbols in the mask, let's go on and now finish. Okay, and see what it did? It made my input mask for me. You see that it does say semicolon, semicolon again. If I had wanted those in there, those parentheses and the dash and that space. And by the way, see how the dash has that backslash and then the dash? That means it's literal. You don't get to write over that. That's there. Okay. In fact, so is this, and then so is this. There's 2 ways to do literal. One is backslash, and the other one is to put it in parentheses. So I'm sorry, in quotation marks. So they have quotation, parentheses, space, quotation, and that makes that literal too. So if I made this 14, then I could come in here and I could put, I think it's 1. You put 1 in there, and then it would actually save the parentheses, the space, and the dash. But I don't want to do that here. I'm going to keep it 10. And that's what I like you to do. All right. So that's done now. Let's go out there and look at it. And if I go over here, let's go on one that already exists, because that's going to work for anything that I haven't entered data into already. Oops. There's the phone. And I start typing. I'm going with but 3, 1, 6. Well, it is going in that way. How come it didn't go from the backside? Oh well. 555 5555. It's always 5555 in movies, right? Okay, so that's kind of nice. Help me out a little bit. And again, it looks like it's that in the database. It's really just the numbers. When I bring it back in this spreadsheet or in this, I'm sorry, in this data sheet, it'll still have those. It'll still look like that. Okay. But it made it a little bit more efficient for the data in the background. All right. So we had a whole bunch of short text fields there. Now let's do some of the other types. And again, I'm not going to do all these for you. I'm just going to do a few of them. All right. There is a hypertext type. Hypertext is basically the way to put a link in your database. So like you have a URL to a YouTube video, you could stick it in there, this field, you could stick it into that field, and then it will actually be a link. In other words, anytime you click on that field, it'll open up your browser, start things off. If it's an email address, it'll start up Outlook or whatever your email thing, and it'll send it off. I don't like the hypertext field. I don't use it very often. There's better ways to do it than it's kind of a poor person's way of doing something let me step back there. It's a shortcut way of doing something. I'm saying this all wrong. It's a shortcut way of doing it the right way. All right. The right way would really be put the link in there as text, and then we have a button or something that we press in order to bring up the browser and all that. Because the problem is, if you have to modify the data and you click in that field, it's going to keep bringing up the browser. You have to actually tab into the field to keep it from actually activating the link, and that gets to be a pain after a while. So I got ahead of myself on that. I just told you why. There are fields that we will use a lot. Other fields that you are absolutely allowed to use. If you want to use a hypertext field, I will never stop you from using it, okay? But I just want to let you know, it is not the best way to deal with links from a record, okay? So then I have one for gender, and that again was a short text field that's limited to us. I'm just going to make that male or female. In fact, I'm going to let you do that one on your own because it's so simple. So I want to do this birth date, and we did a date when we did the tutorials last time. And on that birth date, it's a short date. So first thing I need to do is change the type to date time. I made these all short text. You need to change them to the right thing. Date time, and I want it to be a short date for this format. Kind of think of most fields that have these built-in formats. You can almost think of them as being a subtype, okay? In other words, I've got date time. Microsoft could have said short date as a type, all right, and it would have worked. Instead, they kind of glumped all the things that could be date and times under one type, and the format almost becomes like a subtype then. So I want a subtype here that's called a short date, but we'll use datetime field. And do I make that required? Yeah. Some of these fields, as I said, if you go down to the bottom, you have validation rules that associate with it. This is one of them. So I want to make this one, just like we did last time, between $. And again, I'm not going to do all these for you because I think a lot of you already know how to do this. $. Okay. And now I sent you an email earlier, and I said this last time. You could use date, you could use now, and it turns out you can use today, but I really recommend you don't use today. All right. In my notes, I said now. I have started using date instead when it's a short date, because the date function will just bring back a date, where now we'll bring back the date and time. It'll just ignore the time. You can use either one. It's up to you. But whatever you do, make sure you put some kind of indicator to say that when they've violated this validation rule. The birth date must be valid, whatever that means. All right. It means that you entered an invalid birth date. And keep in mind, what's really cool about this now is, even though I set a firm lower limit here, by the way, I'm sorry, I didn't mean put that $sign in there. Even though, boy, we have a couple of typing errors. Okay, there we go. This should be, why did it do that? Wow, I must have hit, there we go. Okay, pound sign, okay. Even though the lower limit is January 1st, 1900, the upper limit's kind of dynamic, isn't it? If I enter the date today, it's going to limit me on today. Okay, tomorrow, it'll limit on tomorrow's date. It'll go like that. So this is a way to keep that range a little bit dynamic. I could do that. I could say date minus 1800, to make it 3 years ago. It's 1800 days. I'm just rounding it around. I know it's like 1867 or 1865 or something like that. But anyway, you get the idea. I could have said date on the lower part. I could have said date date function minus more, let's say 80,000 or something like that, 50,000 days or something like that, and then that would be my range, right? Obviously, this has to be lower than this one in actual days, so be careful about that. All right. Did not make this required though. Okay, why not? Why would I not make their birth date required? I may not know it. You only want to make as many fields required as are necessary to really establish the record. So for me, it was shocker ID and name. That's enough. I can establish a record now for the student and then come back and fill in the rest of it later on. Required is just what has to be there when the record is first established. The other thing, here's a little hint, okay? It's always smart to keep your required fields early on, okay? In other words, I've got my data sheet. You saw shocker ID and then name right away. I have my 2 required fields. It's not as evident with the data sheet, but think about this. If I had 1,000 fields and field 874 was suddenly required when only the first 3 were, and I get an error message saying you need to have something in that field, how do I know where it's at? I have to page all the way over there in the data sheet to get there, That's crazy. Later on in forms, you'd have to tab down to find it, okay? You always try to put it up front in the record, your required fields. That's one of your helpful hints for tonight, okay? All right. Again, I am not going to do all these for you. I just want to do the ones that stand out. One of these fields here is called a yes/no field. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't like yes/no fields. That doesn't mean you can't use them. You're more than welcome to. All right. I'm going to tell you why in a second. All right. The yes/no field is just what it sounds like. It's binary. It's either going to be nothing or it's going to be something. It's going to be 0 or 1, true, false, up, down, whatever. It's basically opposites. Okay. It's a binary thing. All right. It's in here and it's called a yes/no field. Won't click that one. All right. You could give it default. Its default by default is no, and that's fine. Okay. Now I'm going to show you why I don't like a yes/no field. Let's go over to the data sheet. And I'm going to go over to where it says U.S. citizen. All right. If let's say I have a record in here and I've come to this, does that indicate that he's not a U.S. citizen because it's not checked? Or could it be that I just haven't put anything in there yet? You don't know the difference, do you? That's why I don't like yes/no fields. If I click on this right now, well, obviously he's a U.S. citizen. It's clear. It says U.S. citizen question mark. Check. That must mean yes. Okay, no problem. Now I uncheck it. Does that mean no? Or does it mean I didn't know whether or not they were a U.S. citizen? All right. I would always handle this through a drop down where they pick yes or no. And that way, if they don't pick, I know they just didn't know the value. All right. There is actually a way to make this look like a null. It grays it over, but it doesn't do it by default. And that really bothers me about Access. Okay. So I just recommend that you don't use yes, no's very often. You're allowed to, I would never keep you from doing it, but there is that one drawback. Okay. And that's one of the things you don't Another one of those helpful tips that you're not going to see very much documented out there. All right, now let's get to the fun stuff. Okay, because I am getting to the end here. All right, I want to do one of these number fields. So this is a student's SAT score. SAT scores are always integers. Okay, so I wanted this to be a number field. And I want its field size, okay, to be integer. Now, remember I told you before that format is often a subtype. On numbers, it's field size. Why they didn't just do it on format, I don't know. But then after a while, I realized because there's another way to format numbers. So they had to give you two different, so they made it field size here, okay? That's confusing to me and almost, you know, I'm used to thinking about field sizes. When I got short text, I put a number in there to say it can't be bigger than this. You actually pick the subtype and field size and access. Okay, it's one of the things I don't think Microsoft got quite right. Okay, but just remember that. Okay, so we're going to say now. You may have noticed it was long integer by default. Long integer means it could be a really big size integer number. Okay, what's a big size integer number? Maybe one that's in the trillions. Okay, any other integer number, and what SAT scores, they go up to like 1,000, 1,500 or 1,600, something like that. I can't remember now. It's been a while. Okay. In fact, I got it here. We're going to make a range on this. Okay. 1,600 is just a simple integer. So I'm going to make this an integer field. Yeah. Okay. Now it does have a validation rule. All right. I sent you an email earlier, and I'm going to send you another one later on about tips about building. It's basically a summary of all these tips I'm giving you here tonight. Okay. I'm going to send you another email. All right. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. You will always, 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 always have a validation rule on a number field and on a currency field, because they are really both number fields when it comes right down to it. If only to keep it from being negative or from being positive, depending on the nature of the field. I could see an incredibly rare situation where a number field could take on any number at all, and then maybe you don't need a validation rule, but I cannot conceive of that happening. So always look to put a validation rule on a number field, no matter what kind of number field, whether it's decimal, integer, you name it, okay? All right, the only exception to that will be when we use a long integer for a foreign key field, and you'll see that next week. I'll talk about that. All right. For date fields, almost always you will have a validation rule. And then on required fields, of course, you will always have a validation rule that says is not null. So this is a number field. I don't want them ever to have a negative SAT number, right? I got to see how I actually did this one. Oh, SATs go between 600 and 2,400. Okay. All right. But the funny thing is they may not take the SAT. All right. If they don't take it, I want to indicate 0. All right. So I kind of got two different rules here. One that says it could be 0 or it could be between 200 and 800. I'm sorry, between 600 and 2,400. So let's build that right now. I'm going to have, and it's okay to have the default value 0. All right. I'm going to make it between 0 or, and you can do capital, it'll convert it anyway, between 600 and 2,400. And then put a validation rule in there that says the SAT score value is out of, range between 600 and 2,400. You know, some visual clue to let them know what they have to fix up, basically. And I think that's it. Okay, good. All right. So I do a similar thing on AC. Well, let's go over there and test it just to make sure it's working. So I'm going to save the table. Yeah, I know. Same thing as always. Integrity rules, blah, blah, blah. It's only because I haven't done it in a little while. All right, here we go. So that was the SAT score. And you see how it came up as 0 here. I'm going to do it up here somewhere. Or I'll do it here. What the heck? Just to show you what it could take on. Well, if I do that though, I have to put something in the required fields. Let's go back. Let's go to this one of these ones that actually put something in the required fields. Let's see, I've got, yeah, the second one I did that. The SAT score. So I said it could be 0. Let's put 0 in here, move on. And it allowed me to do that. I said it has to be between 200 and or 600 and 2400, make it 2100, guys of genius. And we'll move off. And it allowed me to do that. Let's do something less than 600, but not 0. Let's make it 300. Yep, out of range. Trust me, that's the same thing at the other end. If I go 3,300, yep, out of range. Fix it back to 2,300. Should work. Yep. How about that? Cool. All right. So I'll let you again. There's 3 others here that are integer. Okay. Then you do those. Okay. And then I want to go over and do the decimals. So decimal is also a number, but a different kind of number, right? I want this secondary school GPA. So this is their GPA that they had in high school, basically. Go make it a number, but then I come down here and you'll see decimal is one of mine. Now, there are other ones that would work here, okay? You could do a single or a double. Never use replication ID. I don't know why they put that in there. That is incredibly dangerous, okay? Byte is stupid too. That means to only take on 0, 1 values. That's like making an yes or no field. The only ones I ever use, truthfully, are integer and decimal. Again, long integer, when you build a foreign key, it'll be long integer, but that happens automatically if you use the object I give you to do that. So the only ones I ever use are integer and decimal. So I'm going to use decimal, and on that one, let's see, what did I make it? Looking at the wrong thing. The field, yeah, decimal, and the format is fixed. So it's a fixed decimal number. Didn't accept it. By the way, you see how I'm doing this? I'm going to the right and I'm getting a drop down and it shows me different ones. Here's another thing they did here that drives me crazy. They actually put currency numbers in there. There's a currency type field. Why they did that, I'll never figure out, you know, but most of the time it's fixed that I use. Every now and then I may use percentage if it's truly always a percentage, or I may even use scientific if it's a scientific database. That doesn't happen very often. You know, I've had some chemistry databases where I had to use scientific notation. All right. And then the scale. The scale is the number of places to the right of the decimal place that I actually want to see. I'm only going to go 2 here. Okay. And that's one of the things I always been confused about, because it gives you the scale 2, but auto for the decimal places. I have to double check that, okay? I'm not 100% sure about what I just said about the number of decimal places here on the scale. That could actually be the number to the left. I bet it is. I bet that's to the left of the decimal point that we're going allowed to go 2. So in other words, the biggest it would be is 99. Probably could have just made that 1 then, right? Anyway, and automatic, I think automatically gives you 2 for some reason. Well, let's see what it does. Yes, see, I can literally pick 2 if I want there. Okay, I'm going to say that the scale is what's to the left of the decimal place. In fact, that sounds right to me. But I'll double check just to make sure. If it's anything other than that, I'll send you an email, okay? I know I'm overwhelming you guys with emails. So, all right, precision, you can keep it high, it doesn't matter. Okay, we don't do calculations that often. All right, so let's save that then. Okay, yes. All right, now I didn't set the default value, or I didn't set the range on that. So I want that to be, you know what? I'm not. Oh, I remember why. Okay, I'm just going to say I want it greater than 0. Okay, I'm not going to put a ceiling on the GPAs. First off, I don't know what they are. They're different in every high school, right? So I don't know what to compare this to anyway. So I'm going to say greater than or equal to. You can just say 0, but I'm going to make 0.00 since I'm making it a decimal number, okay? GPA must be positive. Okay, that's good. Positive. That's good. All right, let's close that one down. I'm not even going to test it because I know you trust me on that. Okay, because there's one more thing I really need to show you before we call it a day here. And that is the table rule. To do that, I need one more field done. And that is this one that says secondary school GPA scale. All right. I know in the other video I said this should be integer. It should be decimal, really. Okay, it is right in your instructions. Okay, if you made it an integer, I don't think it would hurt anything, but I'm making it decimal because I'm comparing it to another field that's decimal. So again, I want this to be number. I want it to be a decimal. And the whole thing scale was 2. Leave it auto, but you can make it 2 if you want to. I'll leave it the same thing. All right. Could I have him input mask? Yeah, I guess I could, but I'm not going to. Secondary GPA scale. Okay, now, so here I wanted to say same thing, just needs to be positive. Greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so that one works now. Must be positive. You get it. I'm not going to worry about my spelling. All right, save that now. Okay, got it. Now I want to go in here and actually, no, I'll go back. I'll go there in a second. Okay. So I think you get the idea of what I'm doing here, and you can probably get through the rest of it. I think I did every type of field that you need to do in this one. Oh, I didn't do a memo field, did I? I didn't do a currency field. Currency works just like a number does, and memo field is basically a rich text field that allows you to do whatever you want in the field. Don't use them very often. You should. I'm saying you shouldn't use them very often, but we will use them in this class. And I'll actually do more on memo fields when we get into forms. They really don't do a whole lot in a data sheet. Okay. But anyway, what I really wanted to show you is there's a thing called a table validation rule up here in this property sheet. And by the way, if that's not open for you, just click on this one and it'll open up the property sheet. When I have a situation where I need to compare the value of one field to the value of another field in the same table, I do that through what's called a table validation rule. All right. These were field validation rules. This one where I said it must be greater than 0. That's a field validation rule. I can't do greater than or equal to and then reference another field here. Access does not allow that, mainly because it doesn't really know what order the fields are going to be entered. Okay, so it doesn't know when to fire that rule on the field. But when you try to save the record, it can compare fields at that point because either it has values in it or it doesn't. Okay, in those fields. So I want a validation rule here. I got to close you down to do this. I've been looking at you guys while I've been doing this. Okay. And the validation rule here, and I give you it. Okay. Now it's cumbersome. I'll give you that. Okay. Because you have to actually express it as if it's a field. To do that, you put a square bracket and then you start typing the name of the field. Now, as soon as you start typing it, it knows the fields that you've entered into this table so far. You saved it. So I want to compare the GPA of the student to the scale of the school that they came from. All right. So I'm going to say their secondary school GPA. So I could just double click on that now and put that field in there. Needs to be less than or equal to their secondary school GPA scale. So again, I'm going to start typing in, there it is, scale. I'm going to double click on that, puts it in there. Plus 1. Why? Because almost every school on the planet will say their scale is 4 for an A, but we have honors classes, so we go to 5. We allow them to go to 5, okay? Maybe they even allow them to go to 6. I don't know. Some may do that. So we could say plus 2. But what we're basically saying is that we can never enter a GPA that's less than the scale from that high school plus 1. And if they do, we'll have a validation rule that says they violated that. And the students GPA, I know my typing is awful here, exceeds the allowable scale or something like that. We'll say something like that. All right, don't save it. Now let's go out to the data sheet so you can see how that worked. Okay. And if I show you that really quick, you go down here and I've got the secondary school GPA. I'm going to start putting his GPA in there. See, if I try to put a negative number, I should get a 0. I should get an error rather. Yeah, it must be positive. Let's make it, they had a 3.5 and the school scale was 4, and that works, right? It's less than. Let's say they had a 4.5. And now I try to move off of it. Still worked. Why? Because I said 4 plus 1. It's still less than 5, so it works. Let's try to go 5.5 and move off of it. The student's GPA exceeds the allowable scale. Conversely, let's close that down and go convert it back to where it was. Conversely, I could come down here and say, oh, that scale was too high, make it 3. And now when I go off of it, the student's exceeding that. So that's a way they could compare 2 different fields in the same table. One of the questions I often get asked then is, what if I have more than 2 that I want to compare? I mean, I want to compare these 2, but maybe I had 2 others I want to compare. You could go back there to that table validation rule. I know, I got to fix that. Okay, I got to go back to that table validation rule that I had and put and then the next rule. And I could do another one if I want to. And now you only get 1 validation text, so you're going to have to be careful about how you word it. If you have different things that you're comparing, you're going to have to give them some indication that it could be any one of those. All right, that's one of the flaws I think Access has. It should give us multiple table validation rule possibilities, but we will rarely ever have more than 1 on a table. Now you do on your homework assignment on A01, there's a table validation rule, and I even tell you what it is. So all you have to do is basically duplicate it and get it to and test it out and make sure it works. Okay. So the last thing I really need to show you before we go is there's a special field called an attachment field. All right. Now you may see here at the bottom, I have a field called mem star notes, ATT star attachments, mem star data revisions. Those fields will always be there. You never want to delete them, because if you do later on, the forms that we use on these tables won't work. You'll have an error message that keeps coming up. These are special fields I built in there that you will always use. Don't rename them. Don't take that star and make it student, because it won't work for you. Okay, leave them as they are. Just leave them be. It's basically, notes is basically a place where you go to make free form information about the student. You can just dump it in there. Attachments are a place where if you had a thing like maybe a transcript record that's in Microsoft Word, you could attach the Word file here. Data revisions is a place where you can actually track what you've done to this record, you know, if you want to keep track of any changes you made. But I was able to put all these in here, and all you have to do is change their type to be the right type, obviously, and that includes the memo field that should be in here somewhere. Didn't I put that in here? Didn't I ask you to build a memo field for the student health? Yeah, health. Oh yeah, here it is, health notes. Make that a memo field. All right. And that is, it's called a long text now. So be careful of that. All right. And you don't have to do anything else. That's good to go. But what I wanted to show you is on this attachment. All right. I also asked you to put a field in here that's called attach student photos. Okay. ATT student dash photos. Okay. To do that, just come down here at the bottom, do ATT student dash photos, and then make it an attachment field, and add your caption that says photos and your description that says photos. And when you're done with that, you know, you could go and you can move it up to a place where it makes sense for it to be in the order of things. Maybe I'm putting it, I don't know where I put it, somewhere in here, probably. Okay. The reason I didn't make that one for you, make it short text and have you convert it, you can't convert an ATT field. Once it's set, it's always an ATT field, and you can't change another field to an ATT field. So you have to make them from scratch. If you make an attachment field and it doesn't work out, your best bet is to just delete it and make it again. All right. Now, somebody pointed out to me, and I'm going to send an email out on this. They made this ATT field. They actually went over, saved it. They put some information into it. They went to that ATT field. It's over here. They went to the attachment portion. They double click to open this up. They added a file to it, said, okay, I'm just going to go out there and pick any old file that I've got on my system right now. Here's a good one. Okay. That's actually stored now in that record. Okay. Then they came in and said, oh, you know what? I did that. I really don't, I'm just going to start over. I'm going to get rid of that field. They came in here, they deleted it like that. They saved this, went back out to the data sheet, and it was still there. You guys, I had that same problem when I did the alternate key field the other night. Remember, I deleted it and it didn't disappear, and I had to go back and do it again and save it again. Sometimes Access, it's called garbage collecting. Sometimes it doesn't do it. And I found out that happens the most on attachment fields. If you try to delete an attachment field and it doesn't go away, this one did for some reason, which is good. But if it doesn't, or if you do anything in Access where you think I've done it right and it's not quite working, go up here to where it says file and see this where it says compact and repair the database. Click on that, and it will attempt to clean up all the junk that might be out there, including any blank spaces. So it will actually compact your database so it's not as big as it was either. All right. It won't delete your data, and it shouldn't get rid of your structure if your structure is right. So we're pretty good here. We're ready to go. So again, I did not do this all for you tonight. I'd like you to go back and do as much of it, do it all, obviously. And then I want you to do it assignment A0101 and A0102. 0101, I tell you the type of fields I want you to build. I tell you what kind of properties you should have on those fields. I basically give you all the instructions that you would need to go out and create your own subject table for vehicles. So you're looking for a TBL vehicle. And I even started the table for you, okay? On A0102, it's just the subject object as it is. What I want you to do, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Come on, close it down. There we go. A0102. I want you to build whatever subject you want to build. All right. So if you want to do it for equipment or machines or collection, something you collect or something like that, go ahead and do it. Just pick one subject. And remember, all the fields that you build have to be related to that particular subject. Set your alternate key field. Use this template and substitute in the things that you need to do. Do not take out these notes and attachment and data revision fields. Leave the stars on there. Do not take out the primary key, but add all the other fields you want. I tell you the number of fields I want you to have in there and the type of fields I'm hoping that I want you to do. Make sure you put the validation rules on there, okay? And then when you're done building the structure, populate it, both A01-01 and A01-02, populate it with data. Okay. And I am going to come back to you now from here. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, wow. Thank you very much for staying around a little extra. I know that this is one of the more involved tutorials, believe it or not. It's probably the one that will take you, I won't say this is the one that's going to take you the longest, but it's one of the ones that will take you a while. All right. Most people, though, after they get through this, the tutorial and the homework assignment for this, will really understand subject tables. You know, if you do a good job at this, you pretty much will do pretty good the rest of the semester, I guarantee you, because I'm trying to do two things at once here. I'm trying to teach you about how to build a good subject table, and I'm also trying to teach you about what's called the constructs of the structure of a database. Okay, the biggest construct is using those naming conventions that I put together. Okay, follow those. Yeah, you may make mistakes. We're not going to go overboard on taking off points if you make minor mistakes on the naming conventions. If you ignore them completely, then we will. All right. So again, I will be sending you an email probably within the next hour that summarizes a lot of what I just said tonight in points. Okay. It also gives you a big warning. Make sure you don't cheat. Okay. I'm going to remind you one last time, because after today, I'm going to get incredibly serious about your work. Okay. And what you turn in. What I mean there is that you're not going to get away with murder. All right. And I'll know that you murdered somebody. Okay. You'll try to murder me and Aziz here. You know, we won't take that very well. So just do your own work. Yes, they did this last semester. Okay. I don't care if they did it right. And I don't care if you could get a hold of that, you know. Do your work. If you don't do this and get it, you are going to be lost all semester, and it'll become very apparent very fast, you know, and I'll have very little mercy for you. So, or very, very little empathy for you, I should say. So anyway, having said all that, okay, I also sent you an email earlier saying that there are work aids for this class. Please use them. One of the great work aids for putting a subject table together beside the tutorials, beside the workbook, is I've given you a checklist. Okay, it's in the information part of this. Okay, use that checklist. Go through step by step. Did I do all these things in my subject table? All right. There's only two on there that don't apply. One that has to do with the foreign key. I think it's step 15. And then one that has to do with setting indexes, which I told you, I'll show you that at the end of the semester. I think it's step 24. You don't need to worry about it right now. The only index that you're going to set is that alternate key field, and in a single field alternate key, if you're using the template, it's already set for you. You don't have to do anything. Okay. So don't worry about indexes. And I think that's all I've got. Aziz, can you think of anything I may have missed?
All good. I think you have covered everything that we needed.
Yeah, I think we got all the major points. So again, I thank you for staying on a little bit longer. I will put the recording from this session up there. Look at the, if it's still fuzzy to you after all that, go back into the tutorial again, you know, but once you get that down, you should have no trouble doing the assignments. The assignment is due September 7th at noon. Don't be late. All right. Any quick questions about what I gave you tonight? Okay. Let's see. There's 3 people. Is Randall on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it Khalili? Rashad? Khalili? I see his name here. I hope he's paying attention. And Alan Homer's on. Are you on? No. Okay. You guys, they're waiting on you to respond to that survey about this class. Okay. And I've been reminded to tell you guys again, please get that in. If you don't have the survey anymore for some reason, just Send Dr. Gupta a note saying you're okay with it being online. All right.
Well,
It's got-
Professor, I think I asked you about it that first week I got into class, and you said that it is expired, so there's nothing we can do about it. So,
well, apparently they still want to hear from you. Okay. So if you don't have the survey, or even if you have it, just send Dr. Gupta an email saying you're okay with it being online. All right.
copy that, sir. Will do.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anything else? Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go. I got to talk to Aziz personally. Okay. So you're going to need to all log off now. All right. Lab night on Thursday. I'll send an email about that.
Thank you
Okay?
very much.
All right. Guys, take care. Thank you for hanging on. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to stop the recording.